Quilt makers, I heard you loud and clear, and thanks again for all of the comments on the recent videos. Today's tutorial will be all about making a very basic T-shirt quilt. If you have come looking for tips and strategies on making your very own T-shirt quilt, folks, don't worry, I've got your back. Now, let's get started. And that's right. Well, welcome back, everybody. My name is Rob Appell, quilt maker from Stitchin Heaven out in Quitman, Texas. And yes, even though I would always be willing to give you the shirt off my back, no, we will not be doing this tutorial today shirtless to make sure that we don't offend myself. Now, this shirt here, or maybe I should slow down, T-shirt quilts really aren't anything much different than a standard quilt, other than we're using a different kind of fabric. So those of you who have made many quilts in the past and you want to make a T-shirt quilt, maybe this is your first T-shirt quilt, well, you have a lot of different skill sets, but you're basically going to be turning your T-shirts into standardized fabric, and then your design remains what is the T-shirt versus making blocks out of patchwork and whatnot like we normally do as quilt makers. For those of you who maybe are looking at quilting for the first time because maybe there's a memorial project you want to work on, or even better, something you want to celebrate by commemorating the T-shirts of the events of somebody or something like that, these are T-shirt quilts are kind of a gateway drug to regular quilts also. So now if you notice on the design wall, I've been playing with some of my T-shirts, and this T-shirt here is ready to be recycled. It's seen better days. I'll just keep those pits covered here. And well, the first thing I really do is I want to make big chunks of fabric so I can make medium-sized decisions and use less of my supplies. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, speaking of supplies, a couple of things you're going to want to have handy in making T-shirt quilts. The bigger the ruler, the better often. So today I have an 18-inch square. I also have a 8.5 by 24-inch rectangle, both by Quilter Select, which I love. That big 18 is a real help. We will be putting interfacing on the insides or the back sides of all of our pieces. And I generally do it larger and then trim down, just like if it was fusible web, so that the interfacing goes right to the edge. And what that interfacing does, folks, is it stabilizes our T-shirt fabric, right? We are dealing with a stretch knit that's going to give in both directions. And by using a fusible light or shear weight stabilizer, right? And the fusible meaning it's got bumps on one side. You put the bumps on the back side of the T-shirt part you want to use, and then we press this down, and I'll show you all this here in a second after I cut up the T-shirt, but by pressing this then secures the shirt from moving, and it becomes functional just like regular fabric, with one more caveat: the T-shirt pressing cloth. Super important. So this is a nice, lightweight, easy to see through, kind of like a linen hanky in a way, and this is going to allow us to press or put heat near our T-shirt designs without affecting negatively some of the screen printing. A lot of times our T-shirts, the reason we love them is these really cool designs that are on them, and sometimes those are done with puff paints or whatever, and so we want to make sure we don't negatively affect the ink on the shirt while turning it into a quilt. So with that said, we've got our supplies ready. I'm going to go ahead now and use that rectangular ruler to slice down my shirt into just bulk. So I really am going to just cut to a part here where I'm going to cut off the sleeves, putting a nice pressure through, and I might have a teeny bit left over there. You can see just a teeny bit of that sleeve left. And I'm just going to slide this down. Now the fabric's going to start shifting immediately. So if you've worked with Minky, it's very similar. Don't panic. Oh, and also save your collars and your sleeves, because those become fantastic rags for working out in the garage. If you like to do woodworking or staining, I love using T-shirts for that. And now, right now, just because it's on the other side of my body, and you can see I'm just kind of using the ruler as a guideline, right? Making sure that I don't cut and stay somewhat straight to my actual design, but again, still taking off that sleeve all the way through. Okay, adding that to my piles of scraps for the garage. Now, the rest of this becomes piles of scraps for the design wall, because now we're basically dealing with two rectangles. And yes, this is the silly rest of the shirt that I was just wearing a moment ago with my back exposed. But now this piece of fabric itself, I'm just going to take it down to close to a rectangle. And then I just kind of tidy it up, and I'm going to keep this set aside. Here I have a stack of the parts from the shirt that don't have fusing. Okay, and now back to the front of this shirt. What I want to do now is I want to cut larger than. These are 16-inch squares. So if I can get a 16-inch square out of this, wonderful. So now I'm going to come up here and I can see I'm at about 17. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the top of this off here. This goes in this garage scraps bin. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to put the fusible interfacing, that lightweight interfacing, on the back side. So I'm taking my design and I'm setting it here on my ironing surface so I can know where my design's at. And then I got myself to, I'm almost out of my fusible. So let me see how I'm going to position this. And remember, bumps, the glue, go on the back of where your design's going to be. And earlier I was letting this run a little further down so that I would also have pieces of fabric that are t-shirt fabric that now have been also fused with the interfacing. And I could use these parts and pieces to make maybe a star or a 9 patch or something. And then also there's spots where I've already patched together a couple of units that were not large enough to make a 16-inch square on their own, but now two together will make that 16-inch square. So pieces like that can be very helpful. You can see here, this one finished originally at 15, so I added an inch of the black around there, but everything has the interfacing on it. Confirming my bumps are down, and because I'm not touching the ink to the iron, I'm not using the pressing cloth at the moment. Going to get this nice and hot. And I want to make sure I get this kind of the stretch out of the shirt. You notice I'm kind of doing a gliding motion here, and I'm going to work like I'm peeling off a sticker, kind of work down the fabric. Like I said, this is really stabilizing our stretch knit of our t-shirt material. So we're ready. Now, while I'm finishing this, I want your brains to start thinking about patchwork. If you're new to quilting, patchwork is what most of us do. If you're been around for a while, this is exciting for you. I want to start thinking about design. I want to start thinking about how am I going to get all of these wonderful elements? And of course, today we're doing the most simple form using primarily the backs or the large front designs of shirts. And all of my squares are being cut down, like I said, or created to a standard size that is 16 inches by 16 inches. However, most t-shirt quilts are going to use sleeve logos, pocket logos, and all kinds of different parts and pieces. And so there's going to be a lot more manipulation of the designs and cutting and managing small units into big units, bigger units into then maybe equal sized units. And I have several videos I've talked about that recently in the past so that we don't have to belabor it too much today. But in the memorial quilt video, I just did the wedding quilt for my kids. That one we talk a lot about size and design and trim down. And then also in the Wonky Log Cabin 2.0 video, which I'll strongly recommend for you. Okay, now I want a 16-inch square. So I'm going to treat it just like I'm squaring down anything else. Here's my 16 line. I want as much of the top of that as possible. And I'm also looking for 8. Where does 8 hit kind of between? Am I going to have a few inches of leftover on both sides of my t-shirt? I am. And my design. So now I'm ready to go ahead, and because I want to save as much as possible, this is an 18-inch ruler, folks, I really am starting right down here about that 16-inch mark. And I'm just going to cut up, and I'm going to cut over. And I'm adjusting my blade a lot. You probably see my hands working with that today. It's because I'm using the Quilter Select cutter that has a heavy duty setting, and I'm using that heavy duty setting, but it doesn't have a speed retractable. So anyways, a little more paying attention to keep us all safe. That's going to be the corner I want to find my 16 squares on. So there's my 16 by 16, 16 by 16. You can see here I had just barely enough. Don't want to cut that in the crack of my rotary mats where they come together. So now I'll trim this down. And this piece here, what I want to do is make sure that if I need it later on, I don't get too carried away. So I'm going to go ahead now, trim off this excess little scrap piece, and then using another ruler, I'm going to trim down so that I have just the interfacing available. So this one for the garage, this one for more parts of the quilt if I choose to use it that way. Although, to speed up today's video, I think doing this basic 9-patch style is going to be the way to go. But I don't love the layout, and now that I've got this extra green shirt, and as proud as I was to be Mr. December, at the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show 2019, my birthday month, I think I'm going to omit this one, maybe make something super special out of that for myself, as all T-shirt quilts are. And now I'm going to go ahead and bring this green one into the other corner. I'm going to move my Stitchin Heaven Expo shirt over. And this now down here will be the base. So we might as well just start building our blocks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and match up just like it was regular fabric. Maybe if I lay it down, it'll be easier to see, right? All my shirts have interfacing on the back. So I can match up those corners. And I'm still going to use a standard 1/4 inch seam allowance. We don't need a big seam allowance or anything like that. Because really, remember, the first rule to t-shirt quilting is make your t-shirts into quilting fabric so that all the quilting rules can still apply. I say that, and then in a second, I'm going to break a quilting rule of mine here. And that is I don't go back and iron at all of my seams because I don't want to start to deactivate the interfacing. Okay, so I'm just going to let gravity do its thing here. I'm going to grab my next square and sew this together. And make all 3 of my rows to be joined together. The interfacing really helps stabilize, but doesn't add a ton of bulk. It will be nice down the road when we go to do some machine quilting. That will also help keep our pucker factor in check. I'm just going to go ahead and reposition my row on the wall, and I'll be right back with this thing all assembled. Now, just like any project that I've got all those big rows together, I'm going to come back in and line up the seams at the squares. You may want to use some pins, but again, I'm finding the interfacing to be very nice and secure on my t-shirt fabric. And a lot of times if I can get the seams to kind of lay flat underneath each other, then I'm going to do that with just my finger, not using any heat or anything, just letting them go. As you just saw, flat together, open seams under the machine. As the weight of the shirts and the interfacing start to add up, I have noticed though that preloading the table or my lap, getting more weight in front of the fabric is helping things not to stretch out and line up a little bit better. Because even with the interfacing, we still have a lot of seams going on a lot of different directions. We want to make it as tidy as possible. Okay, and really about the simplest form possible of a t-shirt quilt top. Oh, I love the way those greens bounce through. Real fun, real easy. Let me show you the back though. Again, with all of that interfacing and all of that structure there, nice and secure and nice and stable. I think I'd like to find another t-shirt or two to add to this project, however, before I do the machine quilting. So if you'll allow me to come back with a part 2, how to quilt a t-shirt quilt, I'll do that. But let's talk about it in case you get inspired before I get my video done. A lot of times, folks, t-shirt quilts are quilted with a walking foot or a top feed system. Because there's so much design going on, and unlike a traditional patchwork quilt where we'll often use a motif that plays within it, one of the things folks will often like to do is just basically stitch straight lines, or diamond quilting in t-shirt quilts looks wonderful because of that, a little bit of puff. One of my favorite things to do is just to kind of echo quilt each block around the designs. But because this is so word heavy, what I'll probably try to do is do kind of like some graffiti quilting around the words, and then linear quilting in the background, or maybe like a brick wall if I'm going to go with that quilting or that graffiti style. When you machine quilt, you want to be extra careful whether you're using the walking foot in feed dogs or free motion, though, to start in the middle and work your way out. A lot of us will back our t-shirt quilts with flannel or minky because we really want these to be snuggle projects, right? Things that people really spend a lot of time engulfed in. So what I'm really adding up to, again, back to our brand new quilters out there, is a lot of the materials I just referenced are very flexible, and they can be a bit more of a challenge for quilting. So if you're brand new to this, again, you can either hire it out to be quilted, or that's probably where the walking foot style quilting is going to be most efficient for you as a brand new quilter because of all the stretch. That walking foot really helps all the layers move together. Like I said, when I come back for phase 2, the how to quilt a t-shirt quilt video, I will go ahead and do it free motion style, and I'll probably do a little bit for you on the domestic and a little bit for you on the long arm, just to show that it's fairly similar. But again, on the long arm, we could be working against some of that stretch factor as well. So for today, thank you for being here. I'm so excited that I was able to share with you a little bit of the information, help get your back covered on making your t-shirt quilts. Please remember, the key to it is treating your t-shirt like regular quilting fabric, and that's by adding on the fusible, light, or shear weight interfacing to the backside before you cut it down to the perfect size squares, making that into a designable, easily finished out quilt top. And then from there on, like I said, it's just the wonderful world of quilting all over again. Folks, thanks for being here. We'll see you real soon with that part 2, how to quilt a t-shirt quilt. Until then, please stay well. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really helps support our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Hit the little button to be notified every time we go live or do a new video for all of you. And here's one from the past I think you'll really enjoy.